Welcome back to another episode of the Collaborative IEP podcast. I'm Ashley Burlow, and I am so happy you're here. I think I usually say I'm your host. So I'm your host, and I'm happy that you're here, friends. I've got a hot cup of coffee. I have a dog at my feet. I have a somewhat still pretty view of piles and piles of snow in front of me, as I think probably many of you do. And it is a really chilly Thursday here in the greater Cincinnati area. So I hope to bring a little bit of warmth, a little bit of knowledge, and a little bit of insight to you in these kind of winter doldrums. And if you're listening to this in August and you're taking a run and you're sweating your bones off, think about piles and piles of snow and maybe that will help. Who knows? So something funny is that, we're going back to our bones here for a second. We're going back to the basics and talking about those three skills I think you need to be an advocate, which again are knowledge of the legal framework of special education. There goes my thumbs up. So that's number one. Number two is knowledge of special education practice and the thing that we're talking about, whether it's behavior, it's reading, or it's, whatever. And then the curricula to help to address whatever those things are by capitalizing on strengths. And then number three is the advocacy and negotiation skill. And so where we are right now is we are kind of like diving back into that advocacy and negotiation skill thing. And I started last week by saying, I had gone through all of these uh, PowerPoints, Canva docs from the beginning of time to get organized because I'm setting out to try to complete the IEP binder, which in turn will help me to write a book, hopefully this year. Although, well, anyway, although dot dot dot, and we'll fill that in later. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, just to give you a little bit of a preview, is we're going to talk about impasse, which is basically like what happens when negotiations get stuck. But I will tell you something funny before we get started, and that is that Rachel, my creative director, wrote me last week and she was like, this episode is like however long it was, 30 minutes or something. Are you sure that's the podcast? And I was like, "Yes," because I keep saying I'm gonna make these short. And then I start talking, obviously to myself, like I'm literally staring at myself in my computer screen as I record. And I decide and I keep talking. So when I was 5 and my parents said she will literally talk to herself for hours, it in fact is true. And that's the way it's gonna be. So you guys are benefiting from that. I hope. I hope you're benefiting. I guess you are because you keep showing up. Anyway, let's talk about impasse. So when I talk about impasse to clients or when I'm speaking to a group or any other time, I usually make two fists and I kind of like butt them up against each other, right? So impasse is when we cannot reach an agreement. We feel kind of stuck in the agreement. So I just a couple of weeks ago I used an example of buying a car. I'll do it again. I just tried to sell my car and I am in a situation. So I bought a brand new car. Okay. This is important here. All of the little details become important at impasse. So I'm going to tell you the details because it's important. I bought a brand new car. I usually buy certified pre-owned cars. I bought my first ever brand new car. And that was 3 years ago. And I love this car. It was navy blue on the outside, blonde on the inside. I said it matched me. This podcast is a great example because I have on a navy blue sweater and my hair is blonde. I almost always have tortoiseshell glasses. And I loved this car. I name my cars. I named her Sandy. That part's not important, but it makes things colorful. And I just totally loved her. She was named Sandy because I like Grease. And it was just a dream of a car. Well, the car's computer was really, really, really glitchy. And so I kept taking her back and taking her back and taking her back. And there is one funny thing that I'll tell you, and that is that like the computer would glitch out such that I couldn't change the HVAC stuff, like the air conditioning and the dehumidifier thing, right? And as you probably know, my kids are swimmers. And so, like, one time it was raining outside, so it was foggy outside, and then I was driving swimmers home, which fog up the inside because they have just swum, so they're, like, warm, and they were teenage boys, and then their hair is still wet, they've got wet towels in my car and whatever, so a lot of times on the way home from practice, they would fog up the car, And I was so annoyed with the dealer. I said, "You know what I do all day? I drive around hot, wet people." Because it fogs up the inside of my car and I couldn't turn on the defroster. But even I acknowledged that that was funny. And so I had to laugh while I was getting mad. But at any rate, this car ended up to be a lemon. They gave me a new car. It was a certified pre-owned car. It was the exact same car. It just, at that point was a little bit older. And I had it for 6 days and I got rear-ended in downtown Cincinnati. And then I had it like another 18 months and I got rear-ended again in Cincinnati. And and like both were just really, really weird situations. And it still is kind of glitchy. So I was like, gosh, I just don't really love this car. I want to sell it. Well, cars get to this point where, like, they depreciate and then they kinda, like, hold steady, and I'm at this, like, hold steady point. So, in theory, I should be able to sell my car and to get, like, maybe 3 or $4,000 of profit, but and it's gonna maintain this value for a while, so it's a dumb purchase for a purchaser. So I basically was like, "Hey, I'm gonna sell this car and hope that I find a dumb purchaser." Now there's 1,000 different situations where you might want a 3-year-old luxury car, right? Like, it's still under warranty. There's all kinds of reasons why you still might want this nice car that I have, but I don't need it. I don't need a car that's that big. I don't need a car that I just don't need this car. So I was trying to sell my car, but I really also don't need to sell the car. So I was like a somewhat motivated seller of a car. All right. So I put it online, didn't get a whole lot of, I got some nibbles, but nothing really ever turned into anything. So in order to get a value, nowadays you have to give anybody your email address, which then goes to dealers. So I was getting all these calls from dealers. So I went into dealers and I took it into two. And, I said, this is what I think it's worth. And both of them came back like $5,000 less than what I said it was worth. Now, I acknowledge that they have to make a profit, right? Like, they need to make 4 or $5,000. So, I tried to negotiate with both of them. Each of them came up $500. Well, we still hit this $4,500 gap between us. And again, I wasn't super motivated to sell the car. So, we were at impasse. I didn't think in either situation that they were gonna come up any, and I certainly knew how far I was gonna come down, and so I was like, "This is where we stop here," and on both of them, I simply walked away. I am a skilled negotiator. I know when we aren't gonna get any further in a conversation, and to me, with this car that I didn't really mind keeping, I just walked away, conserved my energy, and I was done. Now, here's the reason why we can't do that at school. School is really, really important. Our kids are there for 8 hours a day. They are supposed to be making meaningful progress. School is supposed to be preparing them for further education, employment, and independent living. Listen to all of the episodes we did where we went through idea, clause by clause, word for word. That school is extremely important. And we cannot get stuck at impasse on a lot of issues. And so, what do we do when we get stuck at impasse? In this little episode, I'm going to give you 3 strategies that I think are super helpful when you are stuck at impasse. Okay. In those IEP Guru Academy products that I have, those are really short little videos, like 20 minutes or less. They are, believe me when I say I worked really hard not to say all the words. They are like, give it to me, the way people take in information right now. In those, they have scripts. Most of those have scripts because it is so extremely difficult to do this advocacy thing for yourself, for your family when you care so, so significantly. So today I won't necessarily be giving you like a script, but if you're interested in a script, those are over in those guru products and they're very, very thoughtful. And of course, you get the slides so you can like, tattoo them on your arm or, you know what I mean, print them off and take them in there. So the question is, what do we do when negotiations get stuck in an IEP meeting? Now, the first tip I'm going to give you is not one of the three, and that is I think it's really important before an IEP meeting that you go in and prioritize. Like, this is what is most important to me. So, I had a priority, or let's say I did not prioritize really selling my car. I was like, hey, I'm okay keeping this thing. I'm looking at it out the window as I'm telling you this story. So it was not like a high priority. I did not 10 out of 10 need to sell my car. Okay, so you might say, like, it is my it's not legal advice, but it is my opinion that reading is super duper important. So you might say, I really, really need to hammer in on the reading curriculum. Or you might be like, I don't really need that curriculum, but I care more about that teacher, right? Like it can get that nuanced. Of course, teachers are not IEP decisions, right? But maybe it's minutes, maybe it's a small group or one-on-one instruction, maybe it's a certain level of fluency, whatever is important to you. So we're going to prioritize what we want so that we can compromise. There's a whole series in those Guru Academy products on compromise and negotiation. And I truly do believe there's a big point for compromise. Okay. So before we do these first three things, I think it's really important that you go in with a prioritized list because otherwise you just are talking and talking and talking. And take it from me, that is not effective. All right. So the first thing you can do is you can say it another way. I always say, okay, so when I described impasse, I had my two fists bumping up against each other. Now make your two hands talking hands. So if the school district says it this way, right? Like your right hand is making a shadow puppet and it's talking. And then you say it this way, and now your left hand is talking and making a shadow puppet. And then it's like person A says, person B says, person A says, person B says. It's almost like you can like predict the conversation. When my husband and I first dating started, uh, when my husband and I first started dating, he would say, "What do you wanna do today?" And I would say, "I don't know. What do you wanna do today?" And he would say, "Let's play it by ear." And I would say, "I hate play it by ear." And we could have that conversation without even really thinking. I could have that conversation before before it even started, right? Like I knew that's what was gonna happen on a Friday at 5 o'clock. So when that happens, what we have to do is we have to reframe it. We have to say it another way. So no matter how you look to say it another way, you've got to rephrase it. You've got to come up with different language to say it in a different way. Now, there's lots of negotiation strategies that you can do. You can use interest-based negotiation. You can use mirroring, you can bring in more objective data, all of that stuff. We aren't going to get into those details, but the number one thing that you can do is you can simply try to say it a different way and see if that hits. Okay. The least effortful that I use in saying it a different way, you probably already know, I will use an analogy. So I think analogies teach. They take a lot of words, but hey, I got a lot of words. So you're interacting with me, you're probably going to get a lot of words. Number two is using interest-based negotiation, really thinking about the why behind both parties' positions. So looking at the school district and saying and thinking to yourself, why are you saying no to that? Or why is your counter position X, Y, and Z, and getting to the interest? You might have to ask a lot of questions or say a lot of things or use a lot of strategies to get to their why. Are they trying to protect a teacher? Do they not have access to the curriculum? Is that class full? Is that too expensive? Do they not have money? Do they not have confidence? Have they tried that before with no success? What is the reasoning. Oh, a big one. Do they not know? Like, hey guys, ignorance is bliss. And remember, ignorance is okay. But there is a solution to most of the things that I just listed off. And it is our job as advocates to address that thing. So if there isn't enough money, then we have to address the lack of funding and we have to figure out a creative solution around the lack of funding. If they don't have a whole lot of confidence, then we've got to help them get confidence or we've got to help them bring in somebody who is more confident. Okay. So that's what I mean by addressing their interests. Their position is no, we can't do that or we have to do it over here, or we have to do it in this amount of time, or we have to, or, you got to go there to do it. Whatever it is, that that's their position. Their interest is why? Why do you gotta do it over there? Why is it gonna take this amount of time? Why can you just not buy that? Okay, and if we address the why, we talk to their interests, we usually can be a little bit more successful. Sometimes it takes a lot of education, and that's okay. All right, so that is number 2. Number 3 is include new ideas, include new voices, include new information, include new ideas. Most of the time, when we bring in new information, it's way more objective than what we parents can bring in. So maybe it's a little bit of research. Maybe it is a report from your therapist or your tutor or your doctor or your whoever. Maybe it is an advocate or an attorney. Maybe it is a grandparent. While I have never had a ton of success with grandparents. Maybe it is a grandparent. Maybe it's a different decision maker at the district because you haven't had the decision makers in the meeting, even though IDEA says you have to. Maybe it is a different teacher. Maybe you need to hear it. A lot of times they bring in the teachers that are like, everything's great. We don't need to do anything else. And you're like, yeah, but what's happening in math? So we bring in different voices. We bring in different documentation. We look at additional data. We look at additional paperwork for on impact. We look at how things are going in the community. We ask the coach. We get a friend's perspective. We bring in additional information. So what's happening here is your body is saying, yeah, but what? Yeah, but it's the yeah, but information that you want to bring in. And that information can be more objective and can help us see things in a different point of view. And most importantly, it takes away our subjective kind of mama bear, this is hard to do for yourself kind of mentality because now somebody else is saying, and that can be super duper powerful. Okay. So, our 3 strategies for what to do when we're at impasse. Number 1, say it a different way. Number 2, focus on the interests of both parties. And number 3, include new voices, information, and ideas. I hope that was super helpful. I will see you next week, same time, same place. One last little update, and that is that we have our 6th annual virtual special education and advocacy conference coming up February 18th and 19th, 2026, and registration will be live this week. So I hope you check it out. Now, I will see you next week, same time, same place. Have a great week.